Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a very interesting session organized by YLC. My name is Santosh. I'm the Vice Chairman for the current year with the Young Leaders Council. I welcome you all. We have about 85 participants and a great speaker today with us. Someone who's been there, done that in the real sense. Dr. Himanshu is a dear friend of mine. He's also part of our YLC Executive Board. He's been contributing immensely to the ecosystem in terms of helping people get into the authoring profession as well as also to mentor young folks as well as work with the government or other organizations in terms of the advocacy that he works, right? So let me give a brief background of what Dr. Himanshu does, and I'll probably invite Dr. Himanshu to further enlighten us with his kind words about his exposure into the different parts of the world, right? He's been a mentor, a humanitarian, and a social worker. I mean, there are three different facets that that creates a very interesting persona in Dr. Himanshu, right? He's an MBA holder, a PhD holder, right? I mean, and worked with and educated at multiple great institutions. I am Bangalore, I am Indore, I see Oxford. I mean, you can't ask for more than this, right? And he's been counseling students. He's deeply involved in policy advocacy with the national government, as well as also he's been a international TEDx speaker, right? So he's truly been contributing to the ecosystem. He's truly been contributing to the world to make it a better place for us to live in. And also he's won 15 national level awards, right? So Dr. Himanshu, we welcome you all to be here and to share with us your golden words on world building, right? I just want to correct everyone, just to be sure, it's not word building, it is world building that we're talking about today, right? Welcome to the session, Dr. Himanshu. Lovely to have you here. Why don't you walk us through a bit more about your background and where you see yourself contributing in the coming years?
Thank you, Santosh. Thank you so much for this introduction. First of all, I would like to thank Santosh. He's our vice chairman at IMA YLC. Thank you for sparing time for agreeing to moderate this session. It's a great pleasure and honor for me, and for all those who don't know, as in Santosh is a well-known banker. He works for one of the top banks of the world, and I'm glad today. I'm honored that he's moderating this session. Thank you, Santosh, for your words. So,
Thank you so much.
although Santosh, you have shared a lot of things with the audience, in addition to what Santosh has already shared, I'll jump straight away to that. So, I have been into writing in the sense that I wrote my thesis for doctorate or postdoctorate or for a law degree and MPhil and all that stuff. That was more connected to the materialistic world in the sense that education, management, legal side of the writing. And I look forward to contributing to that side as well in terms of writing research papers and other stuff. But somehow that some a writer was somewhere hidden inside me, and that writer pushed me to write stories and thoughts and poetries and other stuff. And finally, somehow I landed up writing 4 5 books. So fifth one is around the corner. I've already written four, working on the fifth one. So yes, writing is something which probably was there inside me, but I never looked at it from that perspective in the sense that I wrote a travelogue, for example, or I wrote a love story, or I wrote an autobiography, for instance, about the people I've come across in my life. So these things were there somewhere, but somehow I got the exposure, and in the sense that I got the platform exposure, so I picked it up and I wrote it. I don't know how, but yes, these sometimes go back and ask the same question to myself. That is, are you the same Imanshu who was scared of picking up the pen and writing something?
That,
But
that
now,
that's being humble, I would say,
yes.
Dr. Himanshu. Thank you so much for being here and welcome you again. I mean, I want to start with something basic, like you mentioned, right? I've been myself going through the struggle of starting to write. There's I've read a lot of books, both the self-help, inspirational books. I love thriller novels, geopolitics, right? Uh, been fed on multiple of these through my younger years, but it's not easy as we think it is to write a book. I know about the writer's block. You reach certain stage and get a block, but I also want to start questioning you or get your views on the initiation block, right? At least I'm going through an initiation block. I've tried multiple attempts to start writing, but doesn't go anywhere, right? Beyond the themes and the thesis. How does one overcome that?
See, the most important thing, I'll start the flow as in this session. I'll start with something that somebody who is not a writer, who's an inspiring writer, and then end it up with becoming a professional writer. So I'll keep the flow like that.
Wonderful.
So to begin with, these days all of us are under so much pressure in terms of performing in our own field. In the sense, if I'm working for an organization, every day the time I spend or whatever I do, most of the time is related or revolving around the subject I'm dealing in or I'm dealing with. You know, so we hardly take time to write something or bring our creative side out. That you're an individual, for example, you're into sports, you are into traveling, or you are a poet or anything. We are so under pressure in the sense that we are competing with the outside world to perform in our ecosystem, in the office or organization, or in our own business. Now, first thing first, if I would say, Santosh, like you, I mean, I have come across a lot of individuals who have picked up their pen and thought of writing something or opened their PC and typing something, but somehow after a while, they give up, or they, the conceptualization part from where they've started, they end up in a different direction altogether. So first thing first, I believe that if you have plans, or if you're really, really inspired in terms of putting it down on a paper, then select a genre, in the sense that what do you want to write? You know, for example, you're practicing law, or for example, you are a traveler. Now, one is your profession. Now, I know a lot of journalists, I know a lot of people who are stalwarts in their industry, but if you ask them to write something different from their subject, it becomes very difficult.
Right.
Now, here, as an aspiring writer, or if you are looking at writing something out of the box, you are doing something or coming up with your own thoughts, the first thing, most important thing is select a genre and then work in that direction. In the sense that read books, understand the concept, the concept, the so-called concept. For example, some of my known people now, they've written books on leadership. Now, they themselves have been leaders. But when it comes to putting it on paper, it was very difficult for them because they were practicing leadership, right? But then when I shared my thoughts that, you create a plot first, it's a story, understand? Whatever you are writing, it's a story. It can be a real story, it can be a conceptualized story, it can be a subject, or it can be just a fiction, just a thought. So, in
Mm.
order to put it on paper, first thing first is create that plot, create that story inside your mind, read related to that subject, and come up with, rather than going ahead and planning to write a book, rather you write 5, 10, 15 articles, 500, 600 words around that subject, and try to get that published in the sense that it reach the public domain, and let public respond to that. That public could be your family members, your friends, or platforms like this, anywhere. But idea is that don't straight away jump to writing a book.
Mm.
Let us start with it. Let us start with a mission and then make it a vision. So I wrote,
Awesome.
for example, my first book, which is The Journey of a Lost Soul. That book revolves around the experiences I had in my life. I converted all that into articles first. I wrote maybe like 20, 30 articles, then jumped to writing a book.
Awesome. I think there's some bit of background noise. I would request the IT team to please monitor that. Right. Thank you so much on that point. I mean, I loved the concept that you start with writing some articles, get it published, get some views and feedbacks, and inculcate that feedback into your next set of articles or blogs. I think that's a brilliant idea. I'll probably take that up on myself to do that for my own journey, and I'm sure the audience would probably look at that as well. And now jumping to the next stage, right? Once someone starts writing, I know there's you need to get your ISBN, and there's always a tussle between getting an e-publishing done versus a physical copy published, right? And all of us would love to get our physical copy published, but I mean, it's not an easy task to get a publisher to agree to publish this, but because it has to go through a certain level of filtering, and you also there are financial economics that are involved there, right? Can you just walk us through for a minute as to what are the other things that are involved in publishing a written book?
Right. So, step two, now that you have conceptualized something or you have plans to write something, you're putting it's already started putting it on paper. Step two is that understand the dynamics, the nitty gritties in terms of becoming a writer. That, it's your intellect, it's your mind, and government or our constitution give us, or the legal system of our country or any country, they give us a specific subject called intellectual property. So it starts with a copyright.
Hmm.
you know Filing a copyright, there are regional offices, there are governments which are into doing this copyright registration. State government, they have small offices. Regional, national level, they have offices. Most of the time what people does is that whatever they contribute, they just post it, and others pick up the idea and they republish it or they reuse it. Now it is up to an individual that if you're really serious about it, first thing first, what you can do, if you have something ready, what you can do is that you can apply for a copyright. Very simple process. Go online. There are regional offices of property, intellectual property. The one in Delhi is in Dwarka, as far as I know. You submit your paper there, and they'll review it. They'll publish it on their platform in terms of cross-checking it, and then they'll allow it. Second is the once, for example, you've initiated the process of copywriting your stuff. Parallelly, you can go for an ISBN, the so-called standard book number, the international standard. So there is an authority, Raja Ram Mohan Roy Authority in India. So you online, you apply, you submit. So the process
Hmm.
again is very simple. You need to have the cover of the book ready. You need to have certain documents ready. You need to have some snippets ready. Blurb is very important. That your content is all about what. If it is a book, that blurb you need to write, and you need to submit it to the department saying that this is the blurb, this is the design, this is the concept, these are the publishers, or I'm self-publishing it, and this is I wish to, in this direction I wish to proceed. So it takes a while for 2-3 weeks, and then they give you an ISBN number, and within that year, or if there's a time frame fixed, you need to submit a copy of the same to the department that this is your book. That is second thing.
Hmm.
Third thing, for a lot of people who think that they don't want to get into this hassle of going for copyright or intellectual property and all that stuff, what they can do is that these days there are a lot of publishers who are online publishers, in the sense that they charge an X amount, and with that amount they do all the legwork,
Hmm.
right? And at the end of the day, if you wish to go ahead with the printing and marketing of the book through them, it's fine. If you don't want to go through them, they'll charge a service fee and they'll do all that stuff. So they are not typical law firms who are doing this. They are more or less the new concept, in the sense that people who have started this taken this up as a business. So these days, these writers, or the authors, are not limited and restricted to very senior people.
Hmm.
I have come across, like, I've done workshops in schools.
Hmm.
I was amazed and shocked to see the talent there. Sixth standard, eighth standard, 10th standard students writing poetry. And now, because they have the platform, they're getting it published. And they go back to their own principal and say, so this is my published work. This is my ISBN. Likewise, I know I have clients now. I'll say as a client is because I'm guiding them, apart from the doctorate and postdoctorate student stuff. There are people who are in their 60s, who are retired. They want to document everything. So
Hmm.
there are organizations who can even help you in terms of deploying an author or a writer for you, a content developer. You tell them the story, narrate the story, they'll write it for you, and they'll market it, they'll get the ISBN done and everything. So avenues these days are multiple avenues are there. You just
That's
need to go out in the market, and everything is available. And I think I personally, as and when I come across people from any walk of life, I push them that please document your story. This is very, very important for seniors. It's very important for the generations to come to understand what their juniors or seniors have done. And for juniors, it's an inspiration in the sense that we are putting our thoughts into converting it into a book, making it a record actually.
uh, thank you so much. That I think the three steps of conceptualizing, then going through the IP, getting your copyright as well as ISBN, and then identifying the two different paths. Either you self-publish or you identify a service provider, work with them to get it published. Right? And you made an interesting point about there's no age restriction on publishing, right? I mean, there's more opportunity for India being a oral rich heritage where we've passed on knowledges through oral songs as well as other modalities. Today we are there's more interest in publishing things and getting our views across to the larger diaspora outside of India as well as within India, who can really consume and build on this knowledge, right? I think that's a brilliant point you made. There's no age where you cannot start writing. On that note, my daughter has started writing now, so it's sort of an in-house competition for me that I should also start somehow get away from that initiation block and get into the writer's block mode at least, and then I can crib about writer's block. Right. So let's move on to the world building activity, right? So typically in any kind of uh, fiction or non-fiction activity, you still have to create an immersive world where people can really start relating to it and also understand the context in which this narration is being done, right? So can you share some tips around how to create these immersive and believable worlds, right? I mean, because when we look at movies, it's much easier because you can visualize things, but in a book, it's more given to the individual how they would imagine. But as the author, you have to set the context. You don't want anything out of context to be thought across, right? So can you share some tips on building that immersive world?
Yeah, yeah. So there are two things here. The most important things. Now, if you are looking at becoming an author, somebody who is looking at getting the things published, actually published. So as I said that when you have conceptualized your book, when you have written a blurb that the story will revolve around this subject, it is very, very important to have each and every character placed accordingly. So whatever name you are giving to them, for example, if you're writing, like my second book, for example, is a love story. So that love story, when I conceptualized that love story, I decided, I mean, I was clear from the day one that I'll have, say, 10 characters in this book. Two main characters who are two main people who are talking, who are discussing, whose stories, and then their friends, the family, or people who are around. So those 10 characters, I decided that okay, these are going to be the characters' names, and this is what they're going to talk about. Or this is, for example, the percentage wise, if I would say, then the book will revolve around 50% on these two people, rest 50 on the eight characters. Now you need to parallelly think and write their role. It should be very, very clear from the day one that if you're writing something, what all characters you are taking. Now, this is one side of it. For example, if I'm what am I writing, it's a fiction and it doesn't have character, but it's a story wherein I'm covering a lot of people. Then comes the second thing. Then you need to go into the details, the nitty gritties of understanding the human nature. For example, if you read some really good books, you'll see
uh, we'll just allow a minute for Dr. Himanshu to come online again. His screen is frozen. So while Dr. Himanshu is coming back online, I would request the audience to please start posting your questions. We'll keep aside last 10 to 12 minutes to cover any questions from the audience. We'll be covering, and we'll be happy to ask those questions. We also have some uh, preset questions coming from our audience on the emails as well. We'll also take them as we go along. So please feel free to share your questions. I'll be happy to take them on with Dr. Himanshu. So until Dr. Himanshu comes in, maybe I'll post a question for you all. How many of you are looking to be authors this year, 2024 resolution amongst audience? How many of you are looking to go ahead and write something in your area of expertise or in your domain that you want to get into? I see one, yes, I'll add myself into that category. Hopefully, I should be able to get into the writing. Wonderful. I see someone mentioning that they're going to write management tips. Awesome. So there are some writers in the audience or potential writers, I would say. I think it is
Hi.
pertinent, like Dr. Himanshu said, we should start probably posting something on some of the blogging platforms, or even welcome to share it with IMA YLC as well. Welcome back, Dr. Himanshu. I was just posing a question to the audience.
Yeah, I am so sorry.
Asking,
There's some short circuit in our area. I think the entire electricity collapsed. Yes, I hope I'm audible and clear.
yes, you're completely clear.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yes.
So
So
we
the
were talking
second,
about the creative, the tips to build a creative, an
yes.
immersive world.
So the second point which I was sharing is that you need to be very, very calculative in terms of putting each and everything around the plot, whatever you are writing. I know it is very difficult, but if you're really looking at becoming an aspiring author, then you need to take care of those smallest of the things, the minutest of the things. If you are writing, for example, okay, let me give you an exercise here. For example, today, if you're sitting in a room, write like 300 words on that particular room. That if you're sitting in a room, so describe that room from a third person perspective. For example, I entered a room and there were two chairs and one table. I sat on the second chair, which was on the left. Then I switched on the air conditioning or the fan. I heard the sound of air conditioning was a little on the higher side. Perhaps the air conditioning was not serviced, or the air condition was not serviced properly. I saw some dust on the table. I removed that dust. I opened the bottle of the water, poured water into the glass, and had water. Now, I mean, I'm saying this very simply here, because I have been doing this. But trust me,
I could literally walk into the room now while you were mentioning that. I could build my own creative visuals around the table, whether
yes,
it's a wooden table or a plastic chair that we are talking about.
yes, that's exactly what writing is all about. Going into the nitty gritties. Like I poured water, I had a glass of water. The glass of the water in which I was having the water, the glass was made of steel. I wanted to have a glass of water in something in a typical glass, not the steel glass, but I had only that option. Then my friend came inside and he offered me a cup of tea. I said, yes, I would love to have a cup of tea, but I want some ginger and cardamom added to it. And it should be boiled perfectly with a blend, 50-50 blend of water and milk. It should be served in a normal cup, not a mug or something like that. I'm just giving an example here.
Got it.
Writing is that you are narrating, you have gone deep into it and you are explaining, putting everything on. You know why this is important? My mind. For
Mm,
example, after sharing this 10, 15, 20-second story, I have awakened few minds here that when you enter a room, these
mm.
are the things which are there.
You need to start observing.
Exactly. So you need to be very, very observant. Likewise, if you are writing anything, you need to study the subject very well. The subject which revolves around that, the nitty gritties, the documentation. It's not like that you'll just start, pick up the pen and start writing. It's very difficult. Okay, last thing, Santosh, I want to give a
Mm,
solution to the people who are attending this. The solution is very simple. If you really want to become a writer, forget about typing.
mm,
Take a pledge that you will not write, as in you will not type the entire book. You
mm.
will only type the book when when you'll finish writing it. Writing means pen and paper.
Ah,
Pick up
okay.
pick up your pen, open a diary or a register and start writing.
Mm,
And then you write 500 words. You'll see the difference. Today, typing 500 words is very easy,
mm,
but writing 500 words is difficult. And you want to become an author or a writer, right? So understand the value. Understand the value of writing in the sense that when you'll sit, pick up your pen and open your register and start writing, then these small things will come into your mind. Then you will understand, then you will read. When we are typing, why I'm saying stop typing and writing is, when you type you delete your mistakes immediately.
mm, mm,
But when you write with the pen and paper, whatever you're writing and you're making changes, those are there in front of you.
mm. That's a brilliant way to start off, right? So you instead of uh, getting into the technology right away, you look at a sorry, you back? Yeah, we are sorry for the disruption. I think there's some bit of a electricity and internet challenge at Dr. Himanshu's side. So yeah, we can see you now back. So yeah, that's a brilliant point made. You said you're saying that start with uh, a pen and paper, start putting your thoughts aside, and build the characters first. Try and give more color to the character, more about their behavioral aspects, what the characters would think, and try and find two central characters that would probably take 40-50% of your narration, and then the other characters would be acting as supporting characters who would probably cover the other 50% of your story or your activity that you're trying to narrate in the book, right? So that's well taken, I would say. uh, so now we talked about the tips, right? Now the other side of the facet is what are the pitfalls to avoid while doing this world building activity or character building activity, what to avoid.
Don't, first thing, there's only one point, you know, and that is don't try to become the Shakespeare type of a person or holding or someone else.
Mhm.
This is just your book. This is just your first book if you're writing, or even if it is an article. Don't try to do that. The biggest problem, the biggest challenge, or what happens is that people when they start putting things on paper, they want to use best of the best words. They want to use best of best vocabulary. They want to keep the English tenses, articles, punctuation, everything perfect. Honestly, it's impossible. It's impossible.
Mhm.
Idea is that you learn to pick up the flow of writing first, right? So all of us are educated. We have studied in English or in Hindi or any other language. If you're putting it on paper, if you're writing, even if you've missed a comma, semicolon, and or slash, doesn't matter. You know, the writing word, there is within the writing word, there's a word called editing. And there are editors, and that's their job. You can't do everything. Try to understand this. You can't do everything. You seek support, you need support of these experts because that's their job. Let them do it. Let them tell you where to put comma, where to put semicolon, where not to put, what not to put. Editors go to an extent they tell you that rephrase this line. Or if you want them to do it, they rephrase it also. They make it like a story if some part is missing. So even if you have reached a level of say 70 to 80%, it's more than enough actually to begin with. More than enough.
Noted.
There
Noted.
are professionals who are there, they'll mold it, they'll rewrite it, they'll rephrase it, they'll clear all the punctuation and story around it. No problem at all. Don't try to become Shakespeare from, just because you're writing your first book, you think that you put best over. For instance, how many of us these days we use thesaurus? You know, I remember my school days or college days, we used to go back to dictionary, pick up the
Mhm.
dictionary, use thesaurus on our computers or books to get better words for us. Essential, significant, or important. Which should I use? I remember my professor teaching me literature that Imanshu, here you should have used significant. Here you should have used important. Here you should have used something else. Right? Now, because of this so-called artificial intelligence, using the artificial intelligence, we are trying to become intelligent. Right? So there are people who can do this. Let us be yourself. Bring out your own people, person inside you. Bring it out if you really want to write. Give the opportunity to your heart, to your mind, the real heart and mind, to put your thoughts on paper. Don't do this artificially. If you really want to become a writer, let your heart and let your mind collaborate and write for you. Don't make it artificial. That you have not gone to a place, for example, but you have mentioned or quoted that place in your book. You cannot describe it because you have not felt it. You can't go to Kashmir without going Kashmir, without going to Himachal, without going to Kerala. You can't write about it. It's impossible. You can read 1,000 articles and probably you'll come to know using the Google Maps, the same streets, everything. Fine, you can, but you have not felt it. You have not
The
experienced it.
experiences are, yeah.
If you have not experienced it, trust me, you cannot write about that thing. If you have not experienced a particular emotion, you cannot write about it. If you have not cried, you don't know what the crying means. If you have not laughed, You don't know what the laughter means. It's again, don't be artificial. Write, put, do what you have experienced. That is the way you can become a good writer.
Point well made. Two takeaways for me. One, um, make use of the talent that is available. It could be in terms of the editors or proofreaders. Make use of technology where it is relevant. Don't infuse technology or don't misuse technology. I would say, right. I mean, in that space, I would say the human intelligence will still will still be received well, perceived well, and also appreciated. Right. I mean, if you look at before industrialization versus post industrialization, right? So the artisanry, the handmade craft has taken a different meaning today and is more sought after vis-a-vis what it used to be before industrialization, right? So I think that's where I see the AI becoming the same. It will be making our life easier, but at the same time the human intelligence or the human capability will be very well appreciated in future, as we see probably a decade or 2 decades from now. uh, AI written books versus human written books, human written books will be much more sought after because it will have those experiences and feelings that will be percolating in it, right? Brilliant, brilliant there. So one interesting aspect that you mentioned was about the distractions, right? If I focus more on vocabulary or the Renan Martin champion being a Renan Martin champion, right, in terms of the grammar and all the commas and full stops and apostrophes, right? So that tends to be a distraction while I'm trying to put across a thought process here. There are other distractions that we also see as an author that you might get into. From your experience and from your mentoring exposure that you've been working with various other individuals. So, what are those distractions that one has to avoid, and how does one keep continuing that focus to build the world? This is from the writer's perspective. Now, the second part to the question in terms of distraction for me is in terms of the world itself, right? The world building that you've done, how far to go ahead and where to avoid so that you don't cause distraction to your readers in the world itself. So, two different distractions. One is for the author, one is for the reader.
So let me connect it here and answer in one point. How many of you, or how many of us, I would say, whatever we write or when we start writing, we go back to our mentor, or we study, or we decide that he or she is our mentor, whether we have met him or her or not. Problem these days is that inputs, most of the time, inputs are taken from people who are either your well wishers or are around you, not from the experts. I don't understand why. I have written something, for instance, I decided to show it to three editors. Now, the distraction part starts here. The distraction part is that people know you, your people who are around you, they know you from a different perspective altogether. Not as a writer, you are an upcoming one, right? So, some, for example, you are an engineer and you go to your engineer friend, he can give his inputs from an engineer's perspective. Try to understand, we are all human beings. He may be a very good writer, but he has not written something which you are writing. Now, what happens is we take one input, right?
Mm,
Now, I go to somebody who is from the literature background. Somebody coming from literature background, he or she will focus on a different aspect of the book. Now, what happens is now I've got second input, right? Third input, for example, I take from the editor, and four, for instance, my own input in the sense whatever I've written. So you club all four things, and you're trying to become a good author or a writer. Does it make
mm,
sense? No, no, obviously no, because you have met four, I mean, people from different walks of life and taken their inputs. On the other hand, as a writer, when I write something or when anybody writes, or you wish to write something, what you are writing should be very, very general and specific to your thought and subject. Above all, it should be a real story, as I've already said. Now, what we do is that we feed our mind with these distractions and let our mind drive us into different directions.
mm.
And those directions are sometimes relevant, sometimes not relevant. So, for example, if somebody who is an avid reader but has not written anything will give inputs from a reader's perspective, and somebody who is an author or a writer will give from the writer's perspective. I need to club both, and I think that I'll reach a conclusion. Maybe, maybe not. Have you planned this in advance that if I'm writing a fiction or if I'm writing a management write up or if it is legal or if it is anything else, who actually will mentor or guide me? Nobody. Then what happens is that these distractions they take you places, and at the end of the day, what happens? The people who start writing chapter they write very well. Second chapter they write very well. Third, they're distracted. They don't know what they are doing. So, for example, I am from India. The writing style or whatever I picked it up from Indian writers. Now, after fourth chapter, I think no, what I'm writing is not good. Let me go read the Rowling. Let me go and read something else. Let me take inputs from some like Paulo Coelho or some other book or some Japanese writer. Do you think that their thought process is same? Do you think that Ikagai or Alchemist is written on the same subject or it revolves around the same subject? Do you think the same genre, maybe written by a different writer, is not giving you a different perspective? It is. What is your own perspective? Don't feed your thoughts to take you in a different direction. From where you have started, you're supposed to have a mission and a vision, but don't let these distractions drive you. Now, I can put these distractions into words that, okay, you don't spare so much time. You never did your time management that you will finish this book in 8 months or 10 months. My first book, it took me 1 year. Second, 8 months. Third, 6 months. Fourth, 3 months. Fifth, which I'm about
Progressing.
to finish. Fifth one, which I'm about to finish, hardly 45 days. Right? So how? I picked up the art of writing. There were, when you prepare for your civil services or for defense or for any other services, you don't do the things which you're supposed to do. You first avoid the things which you're not supposed to. Our focus is always on doing so much. We should do this,
Hmm.
we should do this. No, no, no. You're not supposed to do everything. You're supposed to do very limited number of things, and the result is perfect. But the biggest distraction all the distractions around us are the inputs, the people, the feedback which we are receiving. We are so worried about feedback. Oh, I've written first chapter. Let me show it to my friend. Let me show it to the editor. No, you're not
Hmm.
supposed to do that. Finish your book or finish that article, 600, 700 words.
Hmm.
Please finish that first, relook it, reread it, and then take inputs.
So keep it
Maybe
as original from your perspective as
exactly
possible.
that's the
It's still
first.
okay to be your own work and not don't worry about being judged by the world.
No way. Actually, writers, I mean, for example, Chetan Bhagat. A lot of my friends, they love it. A lot of my friends say that Chetan Bhagat his stories are very, very general in the sense that it's a reality at this level or that level. People start judging and all that. And then on the other side, people who have seen the movies of, say, Rowling, movies made on Rowling books, they're so happy. But I asked them, have you read the book? Have you read the book? No. So you watch a movie, Three Idiots, or maybe any other movie which is based on a novel or a book, and then you go back and watch the movie or read the book. You're like, oh my god, no, no, this is not that interesting.
Hmm.
So you decide. If you're an author, you're not supposed to be driven by a good director or a script writer. Your thoughts should be driven by an author.
Hmm.
But you put yourself into a director's shoe that if I'm writing a book, it'll become a good movie in the future. Come on. You can't just decide this right now. You're authoring, you're writing, and your thoughts are going in different direction. So these distractions are around us. We all are human beings. How to cut it short, how to cut it down is that stick to your goal and objective. That's it.
Right. The second part of the question was this is for the author's distractions, right? Now, on the reader's distraction, right? How do you, as an author, when you're building the world, ensure that you provide enough information, but don't create distractions for them while reading the book?
Mhm.
So, how does one balance that?
But again, we live in an imaginary world, right? When, if I, for example, if you, all of us, if we go back and refer to the books we have read, the books we really liked, we finished reading those books in maybe 10 days or 15 days. And there are books which are just lying there, right? Which are, have you ever, all of us, if I would put it as a question, have you ever thought that why two books, you finish reading two books in say 5 hours or 10 hours or 10 days, but there are 10 other books which are just lying there. You picked it up for maybe like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you just decide to drop it. And then again, after 10 days, you revisited that book. And do you really know what you really like when it comes to reading? Nobody knows.
And that's a self-discovery process.
That's the point. There is no, I can't put it as a distraction. What
Mm.
I'm saying is that the biggest distraction, I don't want to bring in other big stuff here and say this is direction, this is direction, misleading, whatever. It's all about your own self-discovery. What is your likeness? I mean, now I go back sometimes, I remember going to movies with my friends. So every movie was like a good movie. But with time, people decided no. If it is a life story, if it is autobiography, if it is this, I'll watch. If it is this, I'll watch. If it is this, I'll watch. Otherwise, I'll not go into it. Right? What is the reason? So I am not a good reader, but I want to become a good author or writer. Impossible. Right? Second, I really don't know. I really don't know what I like in terms of reading, and I think that I can write something. It's impossible. So these
Correct.
things, but it's very difficult to say that what distractions are. It is for most important is to understand ourselves what I want. If I don't know what I want, then everything is a distraction actually.
Correct. Got it. So I'd say the essence of the discussion is that for the authors, keep it as original as you can. Be yourself. Don't worry about getting judged. And in that flow, you take the liberty to describe the world as compelling as you can make it for the reader, without being worried about everybody liking it. So there might be some people who may like this detailing. Some people may not. So don't get worried. So you go ahead with your conviction on writing or building that world, right? That's a essence I would take. Now if you could just highlight some of the techniques that an aspiring author can use typically to build these unique compelling unique worlds within our books, right? So what techniques should I follow? Like you told about one of the simplest techniques is start writing about your surroundings, become better observant, so that you start really grasping a lot more nitty-gritties about the world you live in. Are there other techniques that one can imbibe to make your own writing journey better?
See, first thing, you know, understand the value of connecting the word, WRD word. What
Okay.
happens is that most of the people, the biggest mistake what they make is that their first paragraph is about something,
Mm,
second is something else, and third, they don't know where they are, where they are heading. And why that
mm,
happens, let me tell you. Let me share the very specific pointers here. Why that happens. First thing first is that please decide that the whatever content you are developing or writing, is it in the first form of verb, second form of verb, or third form of verb? Is it I, we, or they? Is it you are narrating a story, you are writing it, you are telling it, or you are
mm,
taking an example? In most of the books, when we start reading this book, when we go ahead with that, what happens is that initially we write really well, but then we lose that string in the sense that we shift from, it becomes more of an I think, that this is my experience. Please, if you're really looking at becoming an author, like, or a writer, please be very clear. For example, when you pick up news, we have columns, we have articles, we have write-ups, we have stories. Most of the stories, what people does is that a journalist, a good journalist, or somebody who is just narrating or writing a story, what he or she will do, they will go back and take inputs from the experts. So start with something, just an article, I'm giving an example. Start with the subject, then take input one, that under this subject, 4 points are there. First input is this, second is this, third is this, fourth is this, and this is the conclusion based on the inputs received, right? So it's a third form. Now, for example, I am a writer, I am an author, I am writing a story, it's an article or it's a column. Now, I'll describe that what happened there is this. It must have happened because of these research,
mm,
these reasons. This is my research. And this is my conclusion. Now, because I am an expert in this area, people will read that, okay, what the expert is saying. Because I'm not an expert in this area, I'm roping in experts from the outside and narrating a story. Yeah.
mm,
Same thing happens in a book. That's what I'm saying. Start writing some articles, 500 words, 600 words. Same thing is here. The thing is that please decide that what you are writing, what you wish to achieve is your own story. You are conceptualizing a story, or it's a thought, you're building a story around it. What exactly it is? You need to find this out in advance before starting your writing a book or before getting onto this journey of becoming an author. If you're becoming an author, your words will revolve around what? Like, for example, poets, they're very clear. They're writing a poetry,
mm,
right? If somebody's writing a poetry, he's writing a poetry. Somebody's engineer, he's writing engineering. Somebody in particular finance or any other subject, finance. Now, you are last thing, the most important thing. Are you really thinking out of the box or not?
mm,
You're leaving all your profession aside, your education aside. This is your own literary work. This is your own intellect. These are your own thoughts coming from your heart and mind. Think out of the box, put it on the paper, and decide that it is just you're narrating a story, you're telling a story, you're writing a story. It's someone else's experience, or it's your own experience, or there's no such thing called experience. It's just a fiction. I'm just writing. Maybe this would have happened. Maybe this will happen, right? Like people writing E.T., for example, the movies, Steven Spielberg's movies, 60s, 70s. He introduced the concept based on a book. A lot of other people, Rowling, for example, just thought came into the mind. Narnia and a lot of other stuff is there. So those people just thought that okay, there must be some superficial word. Let me write about it, and they narrated the story so well that initially they even it's all documented that all of them were rejected initially by all most of the publishers. They said, "What is this? What is this? What you are doing?" But by the time the concept started picking up, concept made its own mark in the ecosystem. People said, "Why not?
mm,
There might be a possibility. There might be a possibility you can go to Hogwarts. There might be a possibility same thing happened here in India. There are a lot of possibilities. There are people who have documented, uh, you know, so many books with their own perspective, be it from the spiritual side of the human being, be it from any other perspective. People have their own way of looking at things. Their interpretation is different. So, becoming an author is not that difficult, not that easy also. You need to have your own thought process for each and everything what you are writing. You need to have your own interpretation of those thoughts. For example, like we love story, like second example which I was giving. Like
mm,
for some, love story means people fight, they still stay together. For some, they never had a fight. For some, they were in a different zone altogether. Somebody was in East and somebody was in West. For some, it's a different. We see every day we see Bollywood movies. Somebody is there, na? Some scriptwriter is there who is writing the script.
mm.
He may not be an author, but he's a script writer. So that story is coming from the ecosystem. And
Good.
who are there who are interpreting or doing this is people like you and me, we the authors or the writers or the aspiring ones.
Awesome. So we have a lot of aspiring writers, authors, and some have already started the work. Some have reached a certain stage. I see a lot of questions in the chat. Before I jump in there, with your permission, I'll on a lighter note. I think the MBA in you spoke towards the end. You said writing is not that difficult. Writing is also not that easy, right? So, so I keep telling being an MBA from myself and from IIM Bangalore, so I keep telling that. As MBAs and as consultants, we never say yes or no to anything. We just say possible, but it depends. So I'll leave it. So that is on the lighter note. But thank you so much, Dr. Himanshu, for walking us through the process of writing and the world building. Right. I have some interesting questions from the audience. I'm just going to take. We'll try and keep it rapid fire. We have about 11 minutes. So the first question was around. The authoring becoming easy because there are tools available to help you. It could be the chat GPTs, it could be the other tools or technologies that is making life easier to publish. Has that compromised the quality? What are your views? Because there are too many books that are getting published. Has that reduced the quality of work?
See, I most of the time when I go for lectures or when I go for talks, I say this very clearly and bluntly that the creators of artificial intelligence are and were very clear that it is artificial intelligence, right? They have named it. Still, we are not ready to accept it. I don't know why.
Well,
They're very clear. It's artificial intelligence. So, for example, I'm using a tool to put something on paper. I'll probably make few changes here and there, and I'll get it published. Say, for instance, I'll get it published, and after a year or so, maybe after 3 months or 6 months, I receive a letter from somebody who had created this original stuff, questioning me about the story or about anything what is written there. If I'm unable to prove myself, that means I took support from some tool and managed to write it. Obviously, whomsoever has asked this question, absolutely correct that we all want, when we go, all these OTT platforms, somebody is writing stories and somebody is directing and making the movies. We have now 20 plus OTT platforms. Every story is unique, but we only watch the ones which are realistic, which are good content, or the concept is original. Same thing. Now there are thousands of books. How many people actually go and buy those books? How many takers are there? And above all, what is the objective of writing a book? Do you just want an ISBN? If you just want an ISBN, you write anything and you can get it published if it is unique. But if it is not just about ISBN, if you're really looking at becoming famous or selling a book or show your literary skills, then show your skills, please. I
wonderful.
say this to all the budding authors that please, everything, keep it as original as possible. And in future, now like AI, there are so many tools coming up. I remember when I finished my doctorate, the plagiarism policy was 90%. 10 years before me, it was 80%. I think now government has made it to 95%. Likewise, in AI, because of this AI world, people who are writing good stories and all that stuff, very soon there will be software. So if you're putting something on paper or something on internet, they'll cross check it, the authenticity, whether it's an AI created content or it's an original content. So be ready. So people who are original, no worries. Otherwise, absolutely correct. The quality is going down.
Awesome. So that question was by Ms. Anupriya. The next question for you is from Mr. Mahadevan. He's already prepared a book for children, right? It's a children's story. He's exploring possibilities of getting it published. He would like to know how does one go ahead with that? How to find possibilities to publish a book?
Sir, as I said, that I cannot promote any particular platform here, right? But as I said, if you Google that self-publishing platforms or self-publishing companies, you will come across 20 odd companies. I'm in Delhi, for example, there are 10 in Connaught Place. There are 50 in Gurgaon. There are 10 in Noida. So what they do is that they have packaged it in a way that you take your book and content to them, right? They'll edit it, they'll do everything, and they'll design the book cover. They'll apply for the copyrights, they'll apply for the ISBN, everything they'll do it for you. Now, if you want to get it published through them, you can always sign a contract wherein they'll, like a typical publisher, they'll say that we'll give you this much of royalty, we'll publish the books, we'll print the books and everything. Otherwise, you can get it published, pay a fee, and get it done. And this is nothing illegal in it. They're just giving a service which is through the government, and everything is documented and recorded and informed to you. So these services are now available. So best way is if you have really documented ready with it, and if you do not get into the hassle of doing it by yourself or appointing a designer to design your book or find an editor, then just Google and you will find minimum I'm saying 20 companies in Delhi who can help you.
Awesome. So the keyword to search is self-publishing platforms in India or in the city, and you should be able to find enough and more info on that. Point taken. I hope that answers the question. So the next question is by Mr. Vivek. His question goes like this. If I think there's an article on a subject, it could be on entrepreneurship or other theories. Uh, what is the best way to start writing or begin the article writing process? Whom can one approach to publish that? For the article, not for the book.
Okay. So for example, if it is just an article, So I know, initially it is little difficult, but once you'll get hang of things, you can easily write 10 articles. The first thing first is, if it is, for example, related to entrepreneurship, how many articles have you read on entrepreneurship? How many research papers have you referred to understand the concept of entrepreneurship? For example, like India, if I'm from an X institute and the professor there is a is into teaching entrepreneurship, his thought process may perhaps revolve around, for example, if somebody is coming from an area where pharmaceutical companies are there. So his thought process of leadership, obviously the subject will remain the same, but the interpretation in terms, the way he'll describe will be more based on the real experience or exposure which he's getting. So he's meeting leaders of pharma, or he's meeting leaders of manufacturing. Then his thought process or interpretation in that particular area is this: that okay, leaders in pharma are, most of them are chemical engineers or something of that sort. Similarly, if somebody is coming from the IT domain, based in Gurgaon or based in Bangalore or based in Pune, and he has been interacting with a lot of people from IT consulting firms, then the leadership points which he'll chop out will revolve around the IT or the consulting business services side of it. Now, that's my point, that even if it is entrepreneurship, then what in entrepreneurship? That's why I said read minimum 10 research papers around entrepreneurship. What is your take on entrepreneurship? Who is an entrepreneur for you? Somebody who starts a company, somebody who is an author. Author can also be an entrepreneur, that he is getting into the business of writing, or somebody who has decided to set up a manufacturing plant, or somebody who is doing a trading, or somebody who has just started a startup in the sense that he's developing a software and selling that software to XYZ organizations. That's why I say that the understanding of the subject is more important than understanding of what you wish to write.
Correct. So the last question we'll take. This is from Ms. Ashwini Gupta. Her question is: how can one become a literary agent as an intermediary between the author and the publisher?
No, I didn't get it, Santosh. What
Uh,
exactly?
how can one become a literary agent as an intermediary between the author and the publisher? How
I
does
don't
one
know.
become?
I don't
Right.
know. Sorry,
So
I don't know.
that's a skill I would say. Which on Google search as well as some of our own members here are looking at to get more literary agents. So please feel free to figure out on Google. There's enough ways to do that. I'll I have few more questions, but in the interest of time, we'll be able to take these questions. If you can please route it to the YLC email ID, we'll be happy to get back to you with specific answers to your questions. And I would like to summarize the whole interaction that an aspiring author Santosh having with an expert author on the other side with Dr. Himanshu. So few key takeaways for me, and for I hope this will be useful to everyone else, is start with writing articles, right? So get yourself to write those 500 600 word articles. Don't worry about being judged. Be yourself. Be creative. You never know how creative you are until you start writing, and get feedback from your readers, your audience, and keep improving and write at least 10 12 articles. And one of the key filters I would say, Dr. Himanshu said to apply is, before you become an author, you have to be an avid reader, right? So inculcate that habit as well as you start writing. Also look at what others are writing, learn from some of the masters who are written on the topic, like he said about entrepreneurship. At least read 5 10 research papers so that you can imbibe better knowledge and then bring in your perspective around those articles that are being already published, so that you can create a different vantage point for your readers, right? In terms of the technicality of writing, we spoke about starting with the articles and then moving to the conceptualizing of what your storyline or what your narration is going to look like, and post that you go and create an IP for yourself. It's very very important. I want to reiterate, we've all heard the news of how Disney fought for their IP and kept it alive for 95 years now. How valuable IP can be in terms of both money as well as defending your own jurisdiction in your playground or in your activity, I would say. So your article or your writing has to have your own copyright. It should be owned by you so that nobody steals it from you. So get your IP and then go for the ISBN. ISBN can give you a global identifiable number for your written book, and then find two paths. One, either go for the self publishing activity, or find an agent who can do all the activities for you and get it published. Thirdly, if you reach a certain mastery level, the larger publishers will reach your door, right? So that's the broad spectrum of activity that you do as an author. In terms of character building as well as world building, Dr. Himanshu elicited that look at building at least 8 to 10 characters. Two of them could be central characters, taking away 50% of the whole narration, and then the other supporting characters could take away another 40-50% of the time on the narration. And one important tip or trick he said is, don't worry about vocabulary or being a grammatical nerd. It's okay to use tools for that, but be yourself while writing. Take a pen and a paper, start writing it out instead of typing it out, so that you can also keep your mistakes visible to you, so that you might want to get inspired from those mistakes, or you might want to rearrange the words or change the plot at some point in time. You can do that as well when you have the written manuscript. So please start by writing handwritten journals for yourself and get that published, as and when you are ready for it. The last tip and trick he mentioned is to keep a sanctity or consistency in your writing, right? If it's a first party, continue in the first party mode. If it's a third party, continue in the third party mode. Don't keep switching, because that will create a confusion in the reader's mind. And also it's more of a hygiene factor. I would say that it does, as a reader, you don't feel connected to the story or whatever you're reading. If it's switching between first party, third party, creates a lot of confusion, and no, the interest gets lost, right? In the interest of time, I'll keep all other questions away, and we'll be happy to receive your questions from the on the YLCID. There is one interesting suggestion. Someone mentioned that, can we create a group and start engaging for aspiring authors here? I would love to have you all join YLC. As Vice Chairman, I invite you all to join our platform. We can get into the various social media platforms, so WhatsApp and other email groups that we can create SIGs on this, and continue to engage. Would love to have you all join our Young Leaders Council platform, and please, our central office will be happy to give you the guidance on joining. You can also go to the YLC website and look at that. How to become a member? It's pretty simple. To become a member, we would like to have you all on board. And I would love to thank Dr. Himanshu for taking your valuable time and walking us through your journey. I mean, it's a pleasure to have this interaction with you, Dr. Himanshu, and get so much insights and these nuggets of tips and tricks I'm going to apply for myself in the coming days. Hopefully, by the end of the year, the resolution stays true that I'll be able to write a book. And I'd love to thank all the audience for taking your valuable time out on a Friday and spending the evening with us. And I hope this has helped you in becoming, taking your journey further along in the aspiring author world. Hopefully, there'll be more books coming in from this audience group as well. Right. Thank you so much, everyone. I'd love to see you in more and more sessions, and hope to see your books around. Yeah. Take care.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Santosh.
Santosh.
Thank you, Rhythm. Thank you, everyone. Please write. Please write as much as you can. There are youngsters, there are people around you who are looking for original content, original stories, and above all, the original experience of life. So please do contribute. Thank you, everyone.